Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys to another episode of BoomBox Talk, man. I'm your host, LB. I think we on episode number 6, I believe, man. I gotta double check that. But in any regards, man, today's episode, I wanted to talk about drink champs. Anybody that's into hip hop, drink champs in the last 6 years or whatever, they've become a very huge platform and a very interesting platform. But personally, for myself, sometimes I find it kind of hard to really watch a Drink Champs episode because most of their episodes usually run anywhere between like 2 to 3 hours, depending on who's the guest, who the guest is. But and I want to clarify that I think Drink Champs is a pretty cool platform. I like they've how I kind of liked it back in the early days though, when they mainly focused on hip hop legends, and they used to get people on there that I guess maybe the mainstream media would kind of deem irrelevant or whatever like that, or people, they would get the icons, like the people that pioneered something, and they would get them on for like interviews and stuff like that. They still do that to an extent, but they kind of have uh done some different things. Like I know they did an interview with Amber Rose one time, and uh one of the newer up and coming artists at that time, but that's been like a few years ago. Yeah, I know they was kind of diversifying it in that manner, man. But anyway, the reason why I find it sometimes very hard to watch a Drink Champs episode, and most of you probably already know what I'm gonna say, man. It's just Nori's interviewing style, man. I'm not too keen on his interview style, and I've been watching a few of the recent episodes, and I'm kind of starting to get what the platform is doing. It's almost like you having some old homeboys that you ain't seen in a long time come to your crib, and y'all kicking, and y'all just chopping it up about all kinds of different things. So I'm thinking I'm starting to understand that's the whole kind of direction that the Drink Champs podcast is going for. But at the same time, it's just kind of hard to really get through those episodes, man, because a lot of time the guests, they be in the middle of telling some really good stories pertaining to some historical hip hop moments, or they may be dropping some gems or whatever that they could be very enlightening. And Nori will always like interrupt them. He'll interrupt them, and a lot of times they don't finish the story, or they don't even finish that thought that they're trying to get out. And for me, sometimes that can be really frustrating. I've watched several episodes where the guests were really onto a good story, and they was about to really tell something that was gonna be mind blowing, and then, or they was just really in the middle of telling a really good story that really has your attention, that got you intrigued, and Nori would like interrupt them and just take it to some other place, man. Take it to some other direction, and it really annoys me, man. And sometimes, even when the guests are in the middle of telling something, Nori will sometimes interrupt them constantly, or he'll stop them to bring up something that's totally unrelated to what they're talking about. And that really gets me too, man, because I've been watching a few of the recent episodes, and he was doing that quite a bit. I've noticed that it seems that he's kind of slightly toned it down from what he used to do, but it's still there. And unfortunately, I don't really think that that's gonna go anywhere, because his interview style has unfortunately become somewhat of a niche for the podcast. Like, it's pretty much a running gag that Nori's gonna interrupt you while you're in the middle of talking, and that kind of sucks, because I want to hear these stories. I want to hear whatever these gems that some of these like iconic hip hop artists are trying to tell, or they're trying to get through. Now, I think there's only been one case where Nori wasn't able to do that, and that was the Kanye West episode. And most of us knew going into that episode that was no longer Drink Champs, that was Kanye Champs, that was Yeezy Champs. We all knew that Kanye was gonna take it over, and I believe Nori and DJ EFN even said that at the beginning, at the intro, that they knew that, that this was Kanye, that it was Kanye's show, and it was. I mean, there was a few moments where Nori tried to interject, but Kanye, being Kanye, he made sure that he got his point across, even if Nori like diverted him from that original thought. He would always Kanye was like slyly like bring it back around and go right back to what he was saying. Cause I think they had to break that episode up into like 2 or 3 parts, cause they were long. But that's the only time that I know that Nori couldn't overtalk anybody, and maybe the DMX episode, possibly. But I know that Kanye West episode, man, that was Kanye's show at that point. When Kanye sat down and got in front of that microphone, it was his show. But I know one of the early episodes they interviewed E40, and I can't quite recall what he was trying to tell, but he was telling a really good story. I think it might have been something related to like Tupac, or it might have been like the kind of minor beef that he had with Biggie. He was telling something about, he was giving like some background information on that I don't think I knew about, or most of us didn't know about. And E40 didn't even get to finish what he was saying, because Nori just stopped him and interrupted him, and he took it to somewhere else. And that's another thing, man. DJ EFN, big shout out to him, because he does the best that he can to try to keep everything sort of contained to where you can follow. He does his best. It doesn't always work, of course. He does his best to keep it kind of contained, because there are moments where a particular guest will be on a certain type of thought or whatever, or they might be giving out some info that's very interesting or important. Nori will interrupt them and take them somewhere else. But DJ EFN, he'll step in and he'll like bring them back to that point. He'll like stop Nori and be like, no, hold on, man. I want to hear this. He does his best. It doesn't always pan out though, of course, man. But it's just hard to really get through those episodes, man, because there's a few episodes that I want to watch. I want to watch the Alcoholics episode, because the Alcoholics are one of my favorite hip hop groups, and I don't know if I really can contain myself enough to where I can get through it. But one thing I have noticed about Dream Champs is that if you're somebody that's kind of given that same energy that Nori has, it usually goes a bit better. For instance, Styles P, the times that he's been on there, he's kind of given like that same kind of hyped up energy that Nori has. Of course, Kanye, but I mean, Kanye just pretty much took over the Drink Champs. You know what I'm saying? At that point, so there's been a few guests on here who give back that same energy. Like it's usually kind of the more reserved, kind of laid back type of cats that usually, Nori tends to interrupt a little bit more. Not that he's like bullying them or anything. I'm not trying to make it seem like that. It's just that when you giving him that same type of energy back, it usually goes a little bit better. He usually will take a back seat and let you kind of get out what you want to get out. But other than that, man, it's just hard sometimes for me to get through a whole episode, especially when they're like 2 to 3 hours long, man. You're like, well, how long is Nori? How many times is Nori going to interrupt them before they can get to the main point and stuff of that nature? Also, another thing that that really annoys me about the podcast is that party whistle or whatever it's called. Most of you know what I'm talking about. That party whistle that be blowing throughout the show. That's really annoying. And the recent episodes, I didn't hear it. And I do remember that on Kanye's episode, he actually called out the person or the people who are blowing those party whistles or whatever. He told them like, "Yo, could y'all like chill out with that?" Yeah, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it the rest of the show. So I think that's a good thing, because those things are really annoying, man. I don't even know why they even doing it. I don't even know why they even had it there to begin with. But other than that, man, I still think that the Drink Champs platform is really good. I still think it's one of the best podcasts out there. It's just that personally for me, I just have a hard time really trying to get through those episodes, because the way Nori is just all over the place with the questions and everything like that, and he won't allow the sometimes the guest to get out the full answer of what he just asked them. He asks them a question, and then boom, he interrupts them because he wants to get to this next question. It's like, whoa, slow down, man. Let them finish that thought. And I also don't like how sometimes he be calling people on the phone and stuff like that. Sometimes it's cool. Like I think it was like the Cormega episode. I think Nas phoned in and and spoke. But sometimes he be like going on the phone and like hitting people up and stuff while the guest is in the middle of talking about something. I don't really dig that too much either. To me, it's kind of rude in a lot of ways. And then there's also times where Nori seems to don't really have a vast knowledge of hip hop. Like, and usually it's moments where, like, dang dude, you was at the height of your career at that time, and you didn't know that. Yeah, like he be getting a lot of things kind of mixed. I don't know if it's because of all the weed that he smoked throughout the years and stuff like that, and the drinking, because he do be smoking and drinking throughout the show. And there's been a few episodes in the past where it's really like affected his interviewing skills. And now that I think about it, I said the Kanye West episode. Another one of my favorite Drink Champ episodes was the one with 50 Cent. 50 Cent, the Drink Champs episode with 50 Cent was another one where Nori really couldn't. It basically became 50's show at that point. That was a really good one because 50 was able to get out a lot of things. Nori kind of tried to interrupt him a few times to try to bring him to other points and stuff, but 50 ran that too. 50 ran that too. So I'm glad that popped up in my head, the 50 Cent episode. That was a really good one too. 50 was he's just a really entertaining guy. And man, I hope they bring him back on to Drink Champs, especially with everything that he's accomplished on television with the Power series and everything like that. I hope they bring him back. But that was another episode that Nori wasn't really able to do what he normally does because 50 Cent ran that show. He ran that show. He was very entertaining. But yeah, man, like for him like calling people and stuff like that, and I mean sometimes it's cool. Like I said, the Cormega episode where Nas phoned in and a few other episodes, but sometimes sometimes that's annoying too. Especially when those guests are in the middle of telling a really good story and sometimes he'll get on the phone and call them. But for the most part, I really do think that Drink Champs is a really good platform. It really is a huge demonstration showing how far hip hop has really grown. It's really showing now that you don't really have to be just a rapper in order to really break into the hip hop industry. There's so many other avenues now. Like, this podcast is a big example. And I'm glad to see Nori expand his repertoire. You know what I'm saying? He's not known as a rapper anymore. I don't even know if Nori's even still rapping. He's basically a TV personality now. And he's managed to gain another career. He's managed to add something else to his resume, which I think is really cool. And it's really good to see that how much hip hop has evolved from like when I was growing up as a kid to where now it's like there's so many other things that you can do within that culture, and so many more opportunities that you can do and to contribute to it. You know what I mean? So it's really cool, and I think Drink Champs is a really big example of that. So those are just my personal critiques. You know what I'm saying? There may be other people who are fans of Drink Champs who like Nori's interview style, who like how the show is ran, and that's cool. These are just my personal opinions about Drink Champs. But in any regard, shout out to Nori, shout out to DJ EFN, shout out to whoever is behind the scenes that makes it possible for Drink Champs to function the way it does, and who's been responsible for how far that platform has come. I mean, I like it. It's just that was just my personal opinions of why sometimes I find it really hard to get through those episodes. But in any regards, man, a big shout out to Drink Champs. And that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about this episode. And If you guys like this episode, make sure you hit that thumbs up and give me a like. Helps with the algorithm. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell so you'll be notified anytime I drop new content. And I want to give a big shout out and a big thanks to all my old and new subscribers, as well as everybody that's been taking the time to watch my videos. I am humbled and I truly appreciate it. And as always, hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.